Now we must address the mountain of unfunded liabilities hidden behind that $39 trillion headline figure. This is the shadow debt consisting of Social Security and Medicare promises that now exceed a staggering $210 trillion. If every American household sold every asset they own today, we still could not settle this bill. Global institutional investors are no longer viewing US Treasuries as a safe haven, but as a systemic risk. When the world finally stops lending to the United States, the government will have only one move left: printing. Hyperinflation is not a ghost story from the 1920s. It is the inevitable destination of this 2026 fiscal trajectory. The loss of purchasing power in the dollar this year alone has matched the cumulative loss of the previous decade. Imagine the chaos when the global demand for the dollar evaporates and the currency loses its utility. Trillions of dollars currently held by foreign central banks will come rushing back to American shores in a great reflux. Central banks worldwide have been quietly hoarding physical gold at record levels, confirming the shift to a new era. The average American believes their 401k is growing, but inflation is silently eating the underlying value of those gains. Washington has failed to present a single credible plan to actually reduce the deficit or pay down the principal. Every new budget is simply a shell game of replacing old, cheaper debt with new, hyper-expensive debt. New international trade agreements are now being settled in non-dollar currencies, which is a lethal blow to U.S. dominance. The era of the Petrodollar is officially ending, as oil is now traded in multiple local currencies across the globe. When the dollar loses its status as the global reserve, the exorbitant privilege of cheap imports will vanish instantly. This means everything, from energy to high-tech electronics, will become prohibitively expensive for the average consumer. The American middle class is being crushed as their savings are diluted to pay for government overspending. Wealth inequality has reached a terminal peak because asset prices are being artificially inflated by currency debasement. The current stock market rallies are not a sign of economic health. They are a sign of the dollar dying in real time. Expert analysis confirms that the 2026 debt crisis will dwarf the 2008 financial crash in both scale and duration. In 2008, the government bailed out the banks. But in 2026, the strategy has shifted toward the bail-in. A bail-in means the money in your bank account could be legally used to stabilize a failing financial institution. Most people believe the FDIC will save them, but the FDIC's insurance fund is a drop in the ocean compared to total deposits. Smart money and whale investors are aggressively exiting cash positions and moving into hard assets. Direct investment in precious metals, land, and tangible commodities is no longer a choice. It is a survival necessity. The geopolitical influence of the United States is eroding as the interest on debt now cannibalizes the military budget. Adversaries understand that defeating the superpower doesn't require kinetic war. It only requires breaking the currency. Economic warfare has shifted from trade tariffs to sophisticated attacks on the dollar's settlement infrastructure. In the time it took you to watch the first half of this video, the national debt surged by another $50 million. The systemic risk is now so high that a single mid-sized bank failure could trigger a global domino effect. 2026 fiscal reports confirm that total tax revenue will soon fail to cover even the interest on the national debt. This leads to an inescapable choice: a hard default on obligations or a soft default via hyperinflation. A soft default is the silent killer. The government pays its bills with worthless money, destroying your life savings. A hard default would mean the U.S. stops paying interest, which would freeze global credit markets and trigger chaos. Many viewers ask, how will I know when the final collapse has officially started? The truth is that the collapse is already here. You're just experiencing the lag effect of the fiscal disaster. Rapidly rising prices at the grocery store are not just greed. They are the market pricing in the dollar's death. The commercial real estate bubble has already burst, leaving massive holes in the balance sheets of regional banks. The push for a central bank digital currency, CBDC, is the ultimate sign of a failing fiat system. When the current system fails, a digital currency will be introduced to track every transaction and enforce financial martial law. We are witnessing the largest transfer of wealth in human history, happening right under our noses. Those who remain solely dependent on fiat currency will be the ones who lose everything in this transition. History teaches us that the terminal value of every fiat currency in existence is exactly zero. From the Roman Empire to the Weimar Republic, whenever debt became unpayable, the empire collapsed soon after. The United States is not an exception to history. It is currently the largest financial experiment ever to fail. Global supply chains are now prioritizing real value over paper promises as trade becomes localized. Nations like Japan and China are offloading their US Treasury holdings and repatriating their physical gold reserves. This is the ultimate signal that the global trust in the American financial system has been broken. Trust was the only thing backing the dollar since 1971, as it hasn't been tied to a single gram of gold for decades. The social contract is breaking because the currency no longer rewards hard work or long-term saving. Americans must realize that financial dependency on a dying system is a recipe for personal catastrophe. Self-sufficiency, alternative energy, and tangible trade goods are becoming the new pillars of wealth. Raising interest rates accelerates the debt spiral, while lowering them fuels the fire of runaway inflation. The Federal Reserve is trapped in a checkmate position with no move that doesn't lead to a systemic crash. Decades of fiscal irresponsibility and easy money policies are now coming due all at once in 2026. Pension funds, the bedrock of retirement for millions, are at extreme risk due to their exposure to failing bonds. If the bond market collapses, the retirement security of an entire generation will vanish overnight. This is not fear-mongering. This is a mathematical projection shared by the world's most elite finance experts. Mainstream media remain silent because they cannot afford to spark a bank run that the system cannot handle. From the tech hubs of Silicon Valley to the towers of Wall Street, the smart money has already moved to the exits. The world is no longer willing to carry the $39 trillion burden of American overconsumption and debt. A new global financial architecture has already been designed, and it is explicitly built to be non-dollar centric. In this new world order, the only thing that matters is energy, food production, and raw materials. American energy independence is being hampered by the very debt that makes investment in infrastructure impossible. Household debt has reached record levels, creating a secondary consumer debt bomb ready to explode. Credit card defaults and auto loan delinquencies have hit 20-year highs in the first quarter of 2026. People are borrowing at 25% interest just to buy basic necessities, which is a sign of a terminal economy. The global dominance of the dollar is now maintained only by military threat, not by economic merit. However, when you must borrow money just to pay your soldiers, the military shield begins to crack. The collapse is confirmed because no political party has the courage to implement the necessary austerity. Every player in the global market is now looking for a way to exit the dollar without being the last one holding the bag. The next 6 months of 2026 will likely be the most volatile period in the history of the modern financial world. Private memos from central bank meetings indicate that they are preparing for a great reset of all debt. In this reset, the old debt might be wiped, but the purchasing power of the people will be wiped along with it. This is a terrifying reality that cannot be stopped, but it can be navigated by those who are prepared. The skyrocketing price of gold is the market's fever chart, showing that the system is in a state of crisis. The extreme volatility of alternative assets is merely a reflection of the dollar's underlying instability. When a financial system fails, the first thing to disappear is liquidity, the ability to turn assets into usable cash. You may go to your bank to withdraw your funds only to find technical glitches or withdrawal limits in place. These are the same warning signs we have seen in every collapsing economy throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. America's infrastructure is crumbling because the tax revenue is being diverted to interest payments instead of repairs. Education, healthcare, and public safety are all declining as the government runs out of real money. These are the classic signs of imperial decay that precede a total shift in the global balance of power. Capital is flowing toward the east, where manufacturing and tangible production are still the priority. America has become an economy of consumption fueled by debt, and that engine has finally run out of gas. The jump from $35 trillion to $39 trillion happened so fast that the market has not yet fully priced in the disaster. The next stop is $45 trillion, a number that the global credit market simply cannot and will not absorb. The window to convert paper assets into real wealth is closing faster than most people realize. Financial sovereignty will belong only to those who have decoupled themselves from the fiat banking system. The sun is setting on the dollar empire, and this is not an opinion, it is a mathematical certainty. In the new world emerging from this collapse, production and physical assets will be the only true currency. Your greatest enemy right now is normalcy bias, the belief that things will always stay the way they have been. Look at the 2026 fiscal data again and ask yourself, can a system this broken survive another 5 years?